Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artists Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more. The South Coast Artist Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere. Learn more at heavenlyspirits.com.
Hi, this is Ron Fortier with another wonderful podcast with another wonderful guest. And this guest is truly unique. Yeah, I know, you've heard me say that before. But this one is truly unique and for so many reasons. And before I continue gushing, I'm going to have them, as per usual, introduce themselves, spell their names, and give us the name of their business and spell that as well.
All right. Thank you for having me, Ron. This
You're
is
welcome.
super fun. This is actually my first time being interviewed for a podcast, so very new territory for me. But my name is Zarla Ludin. It's spelled Z as in zebra, A-R-L-A, and my last name is L-U-D-I-N. And I'm the founder of the Spare Studio, which is the, and then Spare, S-P-A-R-E, and Studio, S-T-U-D-I-O.
Yeah, I know, because any business, take it from us,
Yeah.
with a the, but in our case, because the nuns drummed it into my head, because there's a vowel, it's the. So when you try to say the Artist Index,
Yeah.
people, the Artist Index, and I don't know if they're repeating it back to me, not knowing that rule or never having gone to parochial school, and just going to put down artistindex.com. So it's kind of a weird thing, but it's
The Spare Studio, yes. It's official.
it's not a vowel, so I guess you're cool. It's one of those things. I first saw the Spare Studio noted with Anthony Frangelis from Anthony's drawing room. Actually, I think originally it was Anthony's closet, and the drawing room down in the historic district, the National Park in New Bedford. And I said, wow, that's a really cool idea, because one of the programs that we're working on with the Artist Index is a salon series, and one of the presenters is going to be talking about artists' estates, which we will also discuss, because it's like a two-pronged fork. You have the estate itself, and on one prong, it's all the artwork that they've created, and on the other prong, it's all the art supplies that they left behind. So I'm curious about Zarla. I have to be, because I'm like my mom. She always had to know somebody's ethnic or cultural background.
Yeah.
Where does Zarla come from? Because you don't run into too many Zarlas.
No, although I should not be, or Zallers. I should not be confused with Zarla.com, which is an AI logo generator, which is actually kind of random because I work in product development. And so sometimes I'll work with brand teams, marketing teams, graphic designers, and they work in that space.
Yeah.
So anyway, Zarla.com is not me, even though it's a zebra as the mascot, and it's like, I was just like, this is very creepy and strange. But yeah, no, my full name is actually Zarlushta, and I shortened it back when I was in grad school, not officially, but just kind of, socially, because Zarlushta was too hard for people to say. And so I shortened it to Zarla, and it's a Pashto name. So my dad is from Afghanistan originally.
Oh, cool.
And so Pashto is like one of the tribes that are there. And so he's part of the Pashto tribe.
Right.
And so him and my mom met in Germany. Long story for another podcast, but they got married, moved to the States, and I grew up in Colorado, actually.
Okay.
And then I came to Massachusetts for grad school and stuck around after that. So
Yeah.
I've been out here since 2007. Since 2007.
2007.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
So I still have my Colorado accent, just like you said, you still have a New York accent.
Yeah, people keep telling me that, and like I said, I left the city when I was 7, when my mother decided to return back here. But anyway, my sister-in-law is Ameranian, so her father was worked in the oil fields, and met her Iranian, and her mom, God rest her soul, she was this really neat lady, and she look at you and go, I am not Iranian, I am Persian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. See, I have to be very careful. I have to say that I'm not necessarily Persian. I'm Pashto. So that's like that's my dad's side of the family. And then my mom is like,
Yeah, it's
all
a whole other world, really, right?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Ludin, I'm because of the cough drops, I'm sure a lot of people just call you Ludins.
Yes,
Oh,
Ludin.
Ludin, yeah.
Sometimes I even forget, and I just say I'm Zarla Ludin. But Ludin is the correct pronunciation.
Okay. Yeah. Believe me, it is a fascinating thing with names.
That's actually a relic of when they lived in Germany.
Really?
Because in Germany, I guess the I is the long E sound. If it's just like a standalone I. And so when they moved there, my grandfather was the ambassador to Germany. They went to Ludin, Ludin.
Okay.
But, yeah.
My brother lives in Landstuhl.
Okay.
That's a whole other story
Yeah.
there too. But so how did this happen? I mean, when did you have that aha moment? When did how did it all come about?
Let's see how far back I want to go. I think, I've always been an artist. I've always been someone that felt like they could put a pencil to paper and create something. I always felt a sense of inspiration or spark. And as I went to school, I studied art anthropology. And thereafter, just kind of like building my career, art sort of took a back burner in my life. It was not something that I prioritized, although I always appreciated it.
Right.
Every time I'd travel, I'd want to go to art museums, spend all my days there. But in terms of me producing art, it was something that I just couldn't seem to do for a long, long time. So I like to call myself a dormant artist, although now I have a few easels strategically placed in my home so that when I'm hanging out with my kids or my husband, I can like jump on and like do something super fast. But having studied art and anthropology, I went very quickly into a very specific field that is in product development and design. And I felt like that was a great compromise for me because it was creative, but it was also very, very analytical, which is something that I really like to, I like have to kind of get that out of my system. I have to be able to analyze things. So the field that I'm in is called user experience or experience design. And so I help organizations do a couple things. One, help them align their internal teams on what is it that we're trying to create. What problems are we solving? What is our ideal experience that we're trying to put out into the world? And then how does that come to life in our offerings? So whether it's a digital offering like a financial systems app or a physical offering like toilet paper, which I have worked on in the past. So there's a number of different applications for that. So I felt like my creative
sorry, the pun's going to come out anyway, right? Right.
So I felt like I had a creative outlet for many, many years in that line of work, and I still do that work. I have a small consultancy with another woman named Mina. She lives in Lexington, and we're active on a few projects right now. But I'm a consultant, and so there's something about that particular line of work that leads to burnout, creative burnout, and also just like traveling and all this stuff. And after having kids, I wanted to bring my life more local. I wanted to be more community oriented. I always felt like I was community oriented, but now I was like, I feel like I need my career to be that as well, and just sort of like make that a little more central.
To recenter, basically.
Yeah.
You said
So,
art anthropology or art anthropology.
Yeah.
So it was a dual major. Mm-hmm. Because when you said art anthropology, my thought was like, wow, what an interesting combination.
Art and.
Yeah. And there is, anthropology is like a blanket as far as I'm concerned. It just covers so many things.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was, the other question was, the dormant artist. I went into marketing and advertising. I started off as a layout artist because I was taught those skills in graduate school by a couple of older guys who were in my graduate cohort. Mm-hmm. Who, I mean, these guys, One of them was internationally acclaimed illustrator. One was the designer of the Channel 5 logo. The other one was a Renaissance man. He was an industrial designer. He developed a 1/6 lunar gravity lander simulator for NASA. He worked as a designer for GM. He owned 3 advertising agencies in Pittsburgh, yada, yada. I mean, the guy was like, there was nothing Peter could not do or did not do. And they're like, Penny's really good, and, you're obviously here because you're good, but you're going to have to make a living, and so we're going to teach you some layout skills.
Yeah.
So I ended up in marketing and advertising, and, it was primarily small market retail. And, at the end of the day, I always would say, if I was digging ditches, I probably would have more brain function at the end of the day than doing this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And the craziness of it was just draining. And there were times, because of the recessions, before I started my advertising agency, I had to go back to work in restaurants. And I bumped into somebody that I hadn't seen in a long time from our BFA class, and we were walking back to our cars. There was a gathering of the BFA class of 75, and I said, I don't know about you, and I know it may sound a little stupid, but because at that time I had come back to painting. I came back out, as I would say, but people would like look at you like kind of weird. And I said, even though I've never touched I haven't touched a brush in 40 years. I mean, other than the advertising stuff. I said, I painted in my head. And he says, that's not silly. That's how I've survived.
Yeah.
And he said, what was your first experience when you finally got that brush in your hand? I said, it was the most bizarre thing in my life. It was like I had put the brush down to go to the bathroom and came back and just started painting again.
Yeah.
It was like no time had gone by.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always, not to toot my own horn, but I'm always amazed that I can go to a piece of paper or a board or whatever surface I'm working on and put and have my intention then travel to that paper, whether then the final product is, done months later or years later, which is kind of like my pace. Yeah, sure. At least it's there and it's like staring me right in the face. I've been working on a pencil drawing of a tortoise for a long time, almost a year and a half. And his name is Jonathan. And he's just sitting in my dining room where my kids do their art and where I'm always like walking back and forth. And Jonathan's looking at me with just like happiness. Like it's not like a judgmental stare. Like, when are you going to come back to me?
Right.
And I've got everything all ready to go. I'm all about the prepared environment. And when I have a chance, I go and sit and hang out with Jonathan for a little bit and then go back to my life. So yeah. But it's, I mean, what you were saying though about that, the kind of work that you did being draining, like I want to just make it very clear. I love my work as a consultant, but agreed, it can be really draining. And I think one thing that I have sort of purposefully done in the past year is made a very concerted effort not to work in digital very specifically. I think with just the political climate and also the realities of some of the personalities that drive some of these larger businesses, I have to have a moment with myself, and think like, what side of history do I want to be on? So the kind of work that my business partner and I have been taking on outside of, this is again my consulting business, is more like service design. So working with organizations like the City of Boston, they're one of our clients, to help them think about like city services and how they can be improved. And how do we mobilize the design team to be able to offer those services? How do we provide a narrative so everyone is working towards the same thing? Different stakeholders, designers, business stakeholders, policy team members are working on the same thing. So with all of those skills in mind, I guess it makes me sort of well equipped to be able to organize stuff, physical products. I love like taxonomies, layers of things, like, and I think that that's like kind of my tangible transition from what I'm doing in consulting into the real world. Like you said, you could dig ditches. Like for me, I can organize colored pencils all day. Like, just give me a pile of colored pencils and I'll organize it all day.
Yeah.
That'll be my grunt work, you know?
Oh, but let me ask you, do you like puzzles?
I do, yes.
Okay, see,
yes.
I don't like puzzles, but give
Yeah.
me a box of tangled up string or wire or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And I will. The goal is to untangle it without ever cutting any of it. It
Yeah.
has to. I don't know why. It's kind of like a reverse cat mentality.
Yeah,
You're speaking about your product development and such, and I've mentioned him so many times on the show. I used to mention him all the time when I was teaching marketing classes. Jay Peterman from the Jay Peterman catalog, and it's so true, because there are some products where you pick them up and you go, whoa, where have you been all my life? And there are other products that you pick up and go, gee, I think I just blew $15 for nothing.
Right.
And he said, when will American businesses realize that people want things that make their lives the way they wish they were? And I think art is a lot like that. Mm-hmm. And I think because of all the uptick in art, the interest in art, it's not the kind of interest going back 50 years. It's more pedestrian. Mm-hmm. It's more utilitarian. I'm not well versed enough to discuss all the facets of it, but people approach it so totally different that I don't know. I think.
Well, I think you said the key word. People approach it.
Right.
I think that maybe in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, but art almost felt like a very kind of precious thing, and it's fine art, and you have to go to art school, and you have to. And now I think art is way more approachable. There's just more people that want to create, and there's a lot more outlets that allow them to feel empowered to create, and I love that. And at the same time, it also produces a lot of, and it's not a negative thing, but like, we were talking earlier about people experimenting with different media or different types of techniques and things like that. It produces a lot of waste. I'm doing air quotes here. But, things that you buy, you say you're going to do it, you're going to get really good at it or whatever, and then you don't. And then it's just kind of sitting in your closet. And so... and it's not to pass judgment on the ways that we're creating right now, but like that does happen, and one of the things that I realized after becoming a mom is my kids are really young. They're 4 and 6, and we literally have the equivalent of like an entire Michael's store in my house. And I'm like, how and when did this happen? We're very conscious of our purchases, and but how did this happen where we just like have so much in terms of supplies, materials, media? And so this past summer, I started being a little bit more scrutinizing about that. And one of the things that I looked at was just like, in my neighborhood, I live on the South Shore, I live in Scituate, where can I go to buy art supplies? Target. I can go to Target, get Crayola, student grade stuff. I can go to Michael's. They sort of have a variety of items depending on which Michael's store it is, but I know they're trying to shift their entire product line to their brand, the Artist Loft, and like Creatology, and maybe start to phase out some of those more recognizable brands. But no, I'd have to go into Boston or I'd have to go online, and so I was like, I'm in an art supply desert here, and at the same time, I'm surrounded by artists. My mother-in-law is very involved in the arts community down there, and pretty much every weekend there's an opening, there's an event, something related to the arts. There's so many beautiful, wonderful artists that are offering classes, programs, and they're also trying to get more out into the community. So offering things that are, again, not just for the folks that are abled and skilled, but get out there and provide arts programs for anyone, really, all ages, all skill levels and abilities. And yet we don't have art supplies like at the ready. So one of the things that I observed with some of the artists that I spoke with is that they'll pool together and purchase something on like Blick, and they'll do that so that they can avoid, the shipping fee, because like someone needs a tube of paint, someone needs a paintbrush. So they'll do that. A lot of folks, they used to buy things on Cheap Joe's, but Cheap Joe's is no longer. They're going out of business, and then sometimes people would go into Boston, which is usually what I would do. But you get there's no parking. It's really meant for folks to be able to walk in and out. And there was an art store that I used to go to in Cambridge. The name, I'm forgetting the name.
Utrecht?
It was Utrecht. It was not Utrecht. It was another one.
Oh, there was.
It was like a co-op. It was independently owned.
Well, there was the Coop itself.
Yeah, the Coop.
Yeah.
I think, was it that one?
Yeah.
In Central Square.
I think so. That's the place that used to sell the T-shirts that said, I went to Harvard because not everybody can get into MIT.
Oh. Yeah.
It's something like that. Yeah.
It's something like that. But or you go to Providence, but again, you're driving at least 40 miles to be able to get some art supplies. Jerry's in Providence, right. And you can go to RISD and they have an art supply store in the area. But so I just started looking into that, and my first instinct was I'm going to open an art supply store. And it's going to be small, and I'm only going to focus on products that kind of like pass the quality test for me. So, and also people that I know, artists that I know. So I sent out a survey to a bunch of artists, and I was like, well, what brands do you like? And, tell me why and all that stuff. So I started looking into pricing and sourcing these materials. I started talking with a couple distributors, and I said to myself, what am I doing? I can't afford this. There's no way I'm going to, invest $100,000 to get an art supply store up and running.
What's the margin?
It would vary depending on the distributor, but like it wasn't that much. I wouldn't be making that much money. Yeah. And there's a reason why art supply stores are really hard to like get off the ground, and the ones that are around, they've been around for a long time. Although there is an art supply store in Fairhaven.
Yes,
the Art Loft.
Art Loft.
Yeah,
yes.
And brilliant. And there's one in Concord,
mm-hmm.
and there's several on the North Shore and Western Mass, and then there's also a secondhand art supply store in Somerville called Make and Mend. Yeah. Okay. So but again, these things are kind of like in certain pockets. We need one that's just around here. Right. So I started looking into that. Too expensive, bottom line. So at the same time as I was thinking about that, me and my family went up to Maine for 4th of July, and on the way back we stopped at the Portland Children's Museum. And my favorite stop in any children's museum is, of course, like the creative makerspace type area. Mm-hmm. And it's chaos in a children's museum. You walk in and it's just everyone's running around. And I think the part that sort of troubled me was that anytime my children were out of sight, my instinct was I just wanted to mess around on my phone, or and a lot of other parents, that was sort of their instinct. Mm-hmm. The one space where no parents were on their phone, all the kids were feeling a sense of like groundedness and calmness, mm-hmm. was in the makerspace area. Everyone was working together to basically make art with pieces of refuse, and it was so beautifully organized. It was color coded on lovely shelves in cardboard boxes, recycled cardboard boxes, and we sat in there for like an hour just making stuff together. We didn't even know what. I think I made a little picture of a bird saying chirp, and my daughter still has that somewhere around the house. But so I started thinking like there has to be something like this that exists outside of the context of a children's museum. And that's how I came across the idea of a creative reuse center, mm-hmm. which is what the Spare Studio is. So we are a creative reuse center and secondhand art supply store. Eventually, I'd like to have some new products in there, and we can talk about that later. But right now, it's really about repurposing and reinvigorating things that already exist. So I started looking into creative reuse centers, and there's many across the country. Some states have more than others. Virginia, for instance, has a bunch. Texas, and there's they're wonderful. They're beautiful resources.
The closest to us, and I wish we could replicate it, is the one in Rhode Island.
In Rhode Island, yes. So there's the Creative Reuse Center in Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. They opened up, I think, in 2022, and they're in Providence. There's one, I think, in Connecticut as well. There might even be one in Vermont. But again, we're talking at least like 40, 50 miles from us. And I feel like creative reuse centers do really well when it's hyper local. So I started doing some informational interviews with some creative reuse centers, one in Boulder in particular called Art Parts, and then one in Charlottesburg, Virginia, called the Scrappy Elephant, and just asked them, like, tell me about your origin story, tell me how you got here, where do you think you're going, what are some of the challenges, and that really helped me kind of solidify that this is what our community needs. So that was back in like the summer up through October when I created the business. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I just knew that I needed to start stocking the supplies. I, of course, had things that I wanted to offload, same with my mother-in-law, so I had a nice little stock there. But the way that I've been able to get get folks to come and donate and offload supplies is by working with other local businesses to have a venue, because if you don't have a place to drop off stuff, how are you going to get stuff?
Exactly.
So there's a business in Plymouth called Book Love that I had 2 donation drop-off events. The first time I did it, I got about 150 pounds of supplies. The second time, 350 pounds. Wow. And what I would try to do is during these events, have kind of like educational material about creative reuse centers and also how to just think a little bit more critically about your art supplies. Like with my kids, for instance, I observed that they were not using their colored pencils very much. And I asked my daughter, and she was like, well, the tip always breaks off. And it's annoying. And I'm not really good at sharpening it. She's got a little 4-year-old hand.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we kind of so I started messing around with the colored pencils and found a brand that has a nice feel when you sharpen it.
It has a thicker lead.
Yeah, it has a thicker lead, a waxier wood. It's not like a brittle, splintery
dry,
wood.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so now we don't have the ones that splinter, and we only keep the ones that don't do that. And so I want to help people understand, art supplies are not all made the same. I think sometimes folks don't really realize that unless you're like a fine artist. And
right.
And here's what are some things you can look for to be able to do that. So a lot of education. So anyway, long story short, I've been collecting supplies since December, and since then I've collected almost 2,000 pounds of supplies. And it's mainly from members of the community. I'll come home some days and I'll see a box of stuff on my front porch. I don't know who it's from, but they're just like, thank you for getting this out of my life. My kids are grown, or, hey, I stopped doing pastels and things like that. I've also collected materials from businesses and used those for creative projects. There's a few sign companies that have offcuts of foam and cool laminate chunks and pieces that really they have no purpose for after they've used it for their sign making, but have really cool applications for creative purposes. This weekend in Cohasset, which is the next town over, we're doing an event where we'll use Sintra board, which is kind of like a denser but flexible plastic board.
Yeah, it's spongy, not.
It's not spongy. It's like,
well, I mean, if you look at it,
it's porous.
It's porous.
Yeah, it's porous, and so.
So it's like, well, to me, spongy on the inside and then polished on the outside. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're gonna gesso that, and then have folks come up and draw signs of spring. And it'll just make for a nice piece that's going to be used for an upcoming art gala at the South Shore Art Center. So I'm trying to, and I see the energy in the community. People are like, I don't want to throw this stuff away. Another example of working with a business is there's a keyboard manufacturer in Weymouth, and they make really nice keyboards for software developers. We're talking $500 keyboards. They're beautiful, custom-made keyboards. And when they get their products shipped, they are shipped in this beautiful, dense foam. It is a beautiful foam. And so they're like, we don't know what to do with this. We don't want to just throw out the foam, but we still need to get these parts here. What can we do with that? So they had the foresight to think there's creative purposes for this. And, it's just about finding the right channel, the right person to be able to harbor these materials until there's a reason to use it.
Yeah.
So, I'm looking around here and there's soundproofing for podcasts. I'm could this be used for that? But
right. We'd like to we'd like more.
Yeah.
Let's go roll back just a little bit more because I don't want to lose those points. There's a lot of things going on right now. You got to look at it anthropologically or sociologically. There's a lot of forces. Yes, a lot of them are the political going on. One of the things that you just, tapped in my brain was with this political situation going on, Chinese tariffs. All of a sudden, I mean, right now, there are going to be a lot of moms, traditional, using the term, back to school is
Yeah.
going to be a nightmare.
Yes.
Because there's nothing coming in, because 90% of everything comes from overseas. I learned a lesson from a friend of mine, master frame maker in Portugal, who, when I first met him, he says, what materials do you use, what paints do you use? And I told him, Windsor Newton. He says, where do you think they're made? I says, in England. He says, He's come over here. And he showed me the whole 9 yards, and he introduced me to my Mary paints, which to me are the best paints on the planet. But anyway, so you've got all these factors going on. Then you've got this other thing. It's either anthropological or it's a social thing where art is all of a sudden much more in the forefront than it ever was. There are parents who are releasing that grip of, but what are you going to do to make a living, honey? They're like, just be fulfilled and you'll find a way around it, because look at all these artists who are working other jobs, the bread and butter jobs and so on and so forth. So there's that factor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have all this interest, and of course there's the pouring, which got to be crazy in its own way, because a lot of call for arts like no pours, looking for paintings. So there's a lot more activity than ever before. And going back to the mid-'80s when I was working as an assistant to the superintendent of art for New Bedford Public Schools, who was a dumpster diver. Because the budgets were always cut. I mean, he would go to the cafeterias and say, those applesauce things that you peel the foil off of, can you just, he would collect all the plastic, bring them home, wash them, and distribute them to all of his art teachers so they could use it for mixing pigments and such.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have all these things that are going on, and you work in product development, so there's all these factors and forces. And the other thing too is there are, as we discussed before, we turn on the mic, so to speak, you've got the influx of availability of surplus or unused or slightly used, somewhat loved, the different categories of art materials, because you've got the ADHD personalities, and I'm not casting any aspersions because I'm one, where you've got this idea and you've got the wherewithal, and you go to Michael's and you buy all this stuff that you want for this, this great project, and then you never get around to it.
Yeah.
Or you've got a professional artist who has top grade supplies, and they pass, and the widow or widower or children say, what are we going to do with all this stuff? So this is, I think, Lao Tzu said that success has nothing, luck has nothing to do with success, it's timing. And I think you've come in just at the perfect time.
Yeah. There are a lot of movements around anti-consumption and just like personal resilience, and just there's a cultural shift happening. I agree with that. I think people are starting to react to some of the things that maybe we found novel or sort of took for granted for many years. One of them being things like products and services being shoved in our face on a digital screen. And so one can attribute the over purchasing of things to maybe neurology, but also it can be attributed to the fact that we are kind of socialized and rewarded for that, to purchase things because of our phones. And so I think, whenever I take these supplies, I always ask people, like, tell me more about them, So I like to think of myself as a collector of the things, but also the stories, So tell me about, where did you get these art supplies? Like, why did you pick that? What was your experience with that? Oh, I see, like, all of your Rembrandt oils are low, but what happened to your old Hollands? Like, why do you have a few of those, but they're barely untouched? And I think that helps people feel a sense of, like, relief and that their art supplies are going to the right place instead of just like any place. I think people are just becoming, not that we never were, but we're purposely seeking out some of these channels to be able to be more responsible, be more resilient, and be more thoughtful about the things that we touch, our material worlds.
The reason why I chuckled, you ask any painter, how many brushes do you have? How many do you actually use?
Correct,
You buy, I love this. Oh, I love the feel of it. Look at this squirrel fur or something. It's like, but you buy it and you never use it because it's sacrilegious. It's just the weirdest thing. I mean, I'm guilty, and I use chip brushes because I'll use them until I wear them to the nub, and because they're, and some people, they use them like once and they toss them out because they don't want to wash them out or clean them out or whatever.
Right.
But
also there is also overconsumption because there's a lack of art supply destinations. Again, I think, I was talking with a woman who bought new pastels from me a few weeks ago, and she went to Michael's first, couldn't find them, they were sold out. She then went online. And her only option online for when it would arrive in time for her to get it for her class was like a box of 120. And she's like, I just need a few hard pastels because to get like a flick in the eye, we're working in soft pastels primarily, but I just need a couple of, flesh tone colors. And so then she texted me and she was like, do you happen to have some new pastels? But that is forced overconsumption where if she didn't have a resource to say, to just find some random pastels, she would then have to buy that box of 120, whether she liked it or not, to be able to do the work that she wanted to do in the way that she wanted to do it. And so I think I'm hoping that having a resource like this will also curb some of that, not feeling like you have to buy the entire kit or the full array of colors. In fact, what I'm hoping to do is have mostly things open stock. So when I get a box of things, most of the time it's incomplete. I'm going to make everything open stock. And if someone comes in and they're not really sure what they want, work with them, hire artists to work with, hire knowledgeable artists to work in the store to work with the customer as well.
Because there's also that odd little thing where if you have a set of paints and there's one tube missing, for some reason it's like a handicap of some sort, or it's seen as inferior. It's this weird psychological thing. One of the we've got a lot of goals here, and one of them. I was discussing, we're having a series of salons that we've received a grant for. And one of the presenters is going to be speaking about artists' estates.
Yes.
And I have this conversation almost every weekend with a friend of mine who is a phenomenal art writer, and you know who you are. You're listening to this. He said that the sad thing about this is that because painters primarily are rather prolific, that the surviving spouse has two choices, and that's the dumpster or the bonfire. Mm-hmm. I know it's kind of a cut and dry way of looking at things, but I don't know how to work around that. And the only other thing I could think of was to write a grant to at least photograph these canvases. Yeah. And then repurpose those, because someday, somewhere, somehow, when you least expect it, almost like Alan Funton and the Candid Camera Show, somebody's going to be say, hey, there's something underneath this.
Yes.
X-ray it.
I love those, I think it's infrared or something that allows you to see the underpainting. And, it's this was Rembrandt, he was kind of looking that way, and then it's the face is now turning this way. Yeah. And, but that, I mean, that's something that I've been hearing time and time again from some of the artists that I've talked to is a sadness and anxiety about what happens to their supplies when they can no longer use them the way that they want. And that's kind of where I really hope to be really helpful. There's already lots of engines out there that collect art supplies that are student grade, the crayons, things like that. And I would love to be a part of that very actively so that we keep all of that in the community. You know, at the end of the year, for instance, in one of the school districts near me, they collect all the art supplies and they give them to Staples. This year, they're going to pilot giving them to the Spare Studio, and then we'll try to keep those within the community. I'm sorry.
No. Again, because every time you say something, you trigger something else in my head. We also have to remember that there are parents who don't have the wherewithal to buy these art supplies for their. I mean, during the pandemic, don't forget, there was a bunch of kids hanging out in parking lots of fast food places, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And they were surfing the free Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And they don't have a computer at home; they only have a cell phone.
Right.
So there's this whole other, part of society that this would obviously benefit. And I have seen it myself working with, for the lack of a better term, inner city kids, which takes all shades, all ranges, all, recently arrived, whatever. And kids need to create. And, again, there's all these things that are going on that I see where art education has never really been seen as core curriculum. It's always been seen as a pastime or as a recreational thing or whatever. And so something is driving the market. I think COVID probably didn't light the fuse, but just, there was more fuel thrown on the fire that had already started. So all these things that are going on are important. And of course, everything has its end time. But in this particular case, I don't think so. I think people being what they are, what I refer to as the normal or whatever. So the normal influx is the people who bite off more than they can chew. They got greater visions of grandeur. They're going to be doing this incredible painting, and then they never open the bag from Michael's that's been sitting on the floor of the closet for 3 years. So how can people help you get more stuff?
Just going back to the estate stuff, though, lately I have been working more with people that are like, I want to show you around my studio. Like, whether or not I have anything to give you, I just want you to see my artist life, like, firsthand. And that has been one of the best things for me. Like, I love doing that. I love the donation drop-off events and the community art projects, but I love going to personal studios and looking around. But how can people help? There's a couple things. I have a website that has a form that people can fill out if they have art supplies to offload. And it just asks you to describe what it is. Right now, I am doing pickups, so I will go to a house, I'll go to a school, I'll go wherever and do that. I just want to reiterate to you, any supplies that go to schools, that come from me, that go to schools, that go to nonprofits are free, entirely free.
Okay.
But for the general consumer, it's like, it's a thrift store. It's, secondhand art supplies. So you can go to the website, you can fill in that form if you have anything to offload. And then you can also follow me on Instagram, because that's my only channel for updating folks. In addition to flyers, I've been really loving bulletin boards, getting paper flyers out there. But I'm on Instagram at the Spare Studio, the Spare Studio.
Yeah.
And there you'll see some updates, some really exciting ones. The most exciting being that I will have a storefront starting sometime soon, still TBD when it's going to open, but it will be at one of those artist buildings in Rockland that I was talking about, and I can't remember if that was on recording or not, but it's at the E.T. Wright building in Rockland, and it's on the first floor, and I will be accepting donations there, as well as having a retail store as well. And the last thing, too, is I am looking for spaces that can be used for free to almost have like a cabinet of free supplies. So, again, this would be intended for anyone to be able to come and just take what they need. And a lot of the stuff that would go in that would probably be more for families, children, student grade, school supplies, that kind of thing. But it would be nice to have several outposts to have these supplies at the ready, someone local in that area to say, hey, we kind of need to restock. So that we can do that and provide that as a service to the community as well. So yeah, to sum up, just if there's anything that you have to offload, do that. Follow me for updates, and I think that would be that would be about it. Yeah.
Yeah. The events that you had with Anthony at the drawing room, how did that work out during AHA? Now AHA draws, according to people who count, 10,000 people on a Thursday night.
Yeah. I was blown away. I met Anthony through one of those sign manufacturers that is providing me offcuts of foam and Sintra board and things like that, and tubes, huge tubes, if anyone needs a big tube. And as soon as Anthony heard about me, she's like, yeah, you need to be a part of AHA, especially April's AHA. So I provided to her some canvases that I had re-gessoed, back to what you were saying about repurposing canvases, and she's been using them for a pass the paint kind of events right now that she's kind of trying out. And then at AHA night, we collected donations. So we put out the word, hey, we're here to collect donations. So we did get several offloads. And then we also did a garland community activity. So I had small pieces of homemade paper that I made out, and folks came up. There was a little bit of watercolor, some markers, and they just created what they want. And what we did was we strung it together, and now we have several garlands that that will be put up to beautify the community and just to remind folks that they can create. So it was very successful. It was really fun, and just so fun to talk to all these amazing artists. In fact, later this afternoon, I'll be going to the studio of one of the artists that I met that evening, and just again seeing what she does.
Oh yeah, I think did I mention Catherine Carter and her art school, which she's in the Hatch building.
Oh yes.
Okay, so look up Catherine.
Yep.
She runs a school, and she's phenomenal. Let's put it that way. I mean, and she's made a living, and she's successful, and we all know what the odds are against us as artists. The other thing too is that there's also a bunch of artists who are, we talked about kids and parents who can't afford for their children. They want to give them, you give a kid a box of crayons and a couple of sheets of paper, and they really will. It's very odd or very rare that a child will not engage with paper and crayon. But there are also artists who are living hand to mouth. They're on Social Security. I mean, for whatever reason, divorces, illness, whatever, just put them in a place that they're not used to being in. And as far as states are concerned, and in fact, I did a podcast with the daughter, Heidi Lewis. Her mom, Vivian Lewis, was quite a success story. She, for an African American woman to be the head of graphics for Jordan Marsh, to be one of the major players in the graphics department for Bradley's department stores. She was a scrimshander as well. And her studio was, oh my God! It was, when I was asked to go in there, it's like, can you help me clean this up? Because she was in the mid stages of Alzheimer's and dementia, and Vivian. I used that as the title for an article I wrote on her as well. We must have more yellow. But it was so sad because to see this incredibly talented, successful woman and all this other stuff. But Heidi said, what are you going to do with all this stuff? I said, well, I certainly have enough. I might pick one or two things that, I haven't had canvas stretchers since I let somebody borrow mine, and I've never seen them again. So I'll take that or whatever. And I said, I do know a couple of friends who are struggling. And I tell you, you feel like Santa and say, hey, go to my car, see what's in there. And he's like, oh. I said, what do you need? Can I take all of it? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And what you don't need, pass it on to somebody else.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's art supplies and materials are very they degrade and they're ephemeral, and it's like they are meant to be used. They're not meant to just sort of sit and wait for the right buyer. And that's why I really try to find all these different outlets for the supplies. It's not, I'm not going to have the kind of shop, and also this is why my shop's going to be purposefully very small. It's 120 square feet right now. But I'm not going to be that kind of store where I have a large storage unit and all these things are just waiting for me to restock in my store. If I have a surplus of something, I'm going to put it out on social media, because that's my main channel right now, and see if someone can just take it. Just take the darn thing. Like I realized I had forgotten I had these, but I have a bunch of watercolor pencils and a bunch of oil pastels that were donated by a woman whose mother was an art teacher. And I already have like maybe 5 or 6 boxes of more kind of artist grade oil pastels. So I'm looking for someone to come and just take these. I don't need to throw a price tag on that. Just come and take them. And so that's really the goal, is to keep everything really lean on my side so that it's affordable for everyone else. And affordable sometimes is free. And I want to keep it that way. I'm not here to make a ton of money off of this. This is something that I really want to be part of that community service for artists and for anyone else who wants to touch art. I think like having worked a lot in tech, for instance, sometimes you reflect on what side of history you might fall on because of the work you've done. And I used to do a lot of work kind of in innovation and, digital experiences that were at the very onset of when, iPhones came out. And we're reading a lot about social challenges that people have as a result of some of the tactics, the design tactics that were built into these systems, keeping people's attention, driving them to conversion and consumption, keeping them, perhaps even driving them towards a certain algorithmic path. It's not to say that I was like instrumental in that, but this was part of the work that I did, and I think sometimes you just need to step back from that and reevaluate what's my imprint on society, what is it that I really want to be doing, and this is what I want to do.
No,
Yeah. Long story short.
It's only been 18 years since the first smartphone popped on the market, which was Motorola, followed by Nokia, and then shortly after, iPhone came and blew them all away. But we've gotten so used to this. And I'm sure there's volume has been written about this, these phones, and now, they've. It's like AI. I hear people, ranting about AI, and it's like AI is a tool like any other tool. The cell phone, the smartphone is a tool like any other tool. A hammer is a hammer. You bang in a nail, you can smash in your neighbor's head. It's not the tool, it's the application of the tool, and now unfortunately this thing can get you in trouble crossing the border or going through TSA. So who would have thunk that back then? And you're talking about some of these things that you're just going to give away. It's like and there are people like for the most part, people are good. It's like, well, I feel awkward taking it from you. Well, make a donation to the cause,
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So
whatever you want to donate. It's not a price. It's a donation. Whatever you think it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I'm structured as a for-profit because I don't. I have to. I almost feel a little orphaned, but there's a concept of mission-driven for-profits where your bottom line isn't your dollar value. In fact, like when I was doing kind of like small business retail mentorship, I kept getting asked questions about, well, what's your growth strategy, and where does it look like? And I'm like, I don't know if it's growth. I don't know if growth is the goal. I think the goal is like functioning and like moving products and things like that. Right. And then at the same time, I also am not a nonprofit. In fact, some of these informational interviews that I did, they were sort of advising against being structured as a nonprofit, as a retailer. And there's a number of reasons why, which I won't get into all the details.
And there's two sides to the story, too, because you could be a nonprofit and have the Spare Studio is one of your subcontractors.
Yes,
so,
you could do that. Yep.
there's
In
all
fact,
kind, and
yeah.
we're not talking shady deals here. We're just talking that's how business is operates.
Right. Yeah.
Because you can't be neither nor.
Mm-hmm.
You can be both.
Well, in Massachusetts,
legally,
they
yeah.
have a benefit corporation, which is something I'm going to look into, as they get a little bit bigger. But it's essentially just in your articles of organization, you're saying that the dollar is not the bottom line. It's about a positive community impact. And there's some like transparency documents that you would produce as a result of that. But what I was going to say about that, though, is that I technically cannot receive donations, but I am providing a service to the community. So people can pay for the service, so there are some creative reuse centers that go off of like a membership model, for instance.
Or
where it's
pay
like,
it forward kind of a thing.
Yep, exactly. You just pay a flat fee every month. I've also seen ones where it's like sponsor a teacher, so $25 a year. You sponsor your art teacher to come in and they can come whenever they want to take supplies. So there's different models that can be used. It's not just about a per unit cost.
Right. Sell gift cards.
Sell gift cards, exactly. There's so many different ways to do it.
And then you can distribute those gift cards as.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think what I've been drawing inspiration from a lot of these other creative reuse centers is like just get creative. Like I said, I really love product stories, and I, for instance, went into a deep dive on like Winsor and Newton's logos, and I couldn't find just like a history of the logos. Like, where did it start? What did it look like in 1997? What does it look like now?
Well, that's an interesting thing. Yeah.
So creating content like that,
Right.
is something that I'm really interested in.
It's engagement as well, because people will send you images of,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been looking for the Speedball drawing books, drawing manuals, or whatever. Speedball, there's something about the line of Speedball. I mean, the cartoonists back in the day, when they refer to it as inking, when they inked, with the broad nibs and so on and so forth. And there was an entire book on how to, so it was like, not calligraphy, which is one thing, but there is a calligraphic element where have dimensional line, because when you hold it, when you draw the pen across in the direction of the nib,
flares out. Yeah.
And then you turn it, so it's like a ribbon. It's a dimensional ribbon in space. It's still 2D, but it's illusional, right? So there's a lot of that. I can't believe it went by so fast. What can the Artist Index do for you? And I don't want to put you on the spot because we're rolling tape here, but what can we do for you? And I think this is something that I haven't thought through completely, but I think this is something that it would be a fit for us, because one of the things still in the back of my head is that thing about artists. Hey, I'm getting older. My wife is an artist as well. Our daughter's going to be like at some point going, oh my gosh, what am I going to, but she also dabbles, but what can we do for you?
I would really love, so again, as I mentioned, like in Texas or in Charlotte or in Virginia, Virginia in particular is pretty inspiring, because they almost work as like a consortium of creative reuse centers. But I would really, really love, again, I live in Scituate. Rockland is where I'll be opening up. It's about an hour from here, which is actually not that inconvenient. I don't know. I grew up in Colorado. Sometimes I think people in New England, you're driving an hour, they think you're going to Mars, but I'm like, an hour is like going to the grocery store.
Well, you go to Maine, and it's like, go visit my brother, and it's like, well, how far is that? It's just up the road. 2 hours later.
Right, exactly. See, that's my frame of reference. I'm fine with like big distances.
Yeah.
And I was telling my husband, I'm like, yep, going to New Bedford again. He's like, again? Oh my gosh, you're putting a lot of miles. And I'm like, it's only 40 miles away. But anyway, the bottom line is that a lot of this kind of activity really does well when there's like hyper local nodes and then sort of networks. And I feel, and there is one person in New Bedford that I connected with, an artist who would love to start a creative reuse center down here. So I think just making it very clear that there is demand for it, so that we can start having more of these nodes again, kind of like popping up, and we can start creating more of a network of things. Because like, I know, for instance, where I am, I'm working with a lot of painters, but let's say we move a little bit more towards Boston, you're probably working more with like fibers or like found materials. Like there's there's different types of activities that are happening in different areas, and there's no way that I would be able to be the kind of store that houses everything. Nor would I want it to be that way. I've seen creative reuse centers that are almost overwhelming. You walk in, there's bins of buttons and stamps and
blanks of this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What I want is a little bit more of a bespoke, one-to-one, high touch. I'm looking for this kind of experience, at least to start. Maybe it evolves, but. If I know, for instance, on the South Coast, there's more need for X, Y, and Z. Hey, take all my stuff. So just more like networks of these types of things,
I mean, one of the things that's prevented me from conducting my drawing classes that I've melded Betty Edwards with Nicolaides' natural way to draw, Betty Edwards drawing the right side of the brain, into my own thing called the 7 T's to better drawing, because I always remember sitting with my granddaughter watching Ratatouille and Chef Gusteau saying, anyone can cook. And I thought to myself, damn, anyone can draw.
Yeah.
It's not all this romantic, all this other weird, bizarre, stereotypical things.
Yeah.
There is something to it, and I've proved it over and over. However, the thing, my tripping point has always been going to these institutions to use their space, and they don't have the proper easel. And I cannot teach that course without a proper easel.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that, I know you're not looking at studio furniture.
I am.
But,
I am.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Oh, yeah. So
because even being an exchange where, as a service of, it would be not ethereal, it would be virtual.
Yeah.
I've got 10 Whedon. Meeting. I was like, I'll be there in a minute.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're again a network of these types of things where it's not a hunt and peck look for on Facebook of things. Like someone in Milton right now is selling a box of 40 Sennelier pastels for like $40 or something.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. But like having kind of all of this sort of like consolidated, but again, keeping it local. I think that for me is really important, mainly for the sustainability angle. It's not going to get on a box, put in a box to be shipped somewhere else. We're keeping it here so that people can engage with it and continue to use it.
I got to ask Jeff if he had a drawing table.
Oh.
An old-fashioned draftsman's drawing table.
Yeah. I said I'm not going to have like a storage area where I'm sort of like hoarding supplies to then restock. What I'm going to do is in my shop, I'm going to have a list of all the inventory that I have in a basement storage. Okay. And it's mostly larger things. I have canvases as big as the one behind you, for instance.
These are all mine, by the way.
Yeah. Empty canvases like that. There was a photography print shop in New Bedford that they're closing down after 40 years.
Tricolor. Yeah, Bob Belanger,
Yes.
Yeah.
And they they donated all of their canvas stretcher bars, all of their, yes. And
I coveted those. The first time he showed me a reproduction, I said, those stretchers are better than any stretchers you can buy in any art store.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. This is a reproduction, and they're like talk about almost bespoke.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And it's a lot of them. So like I have so many of them. I want to inventory them and just be like, who needs them right now? I'll have some in the store, different sizes, but at the same time, like it's too many, because I will get stretcher bars in the future. I don't need to have all the stretcher bars.
They're hard to find, believe it or not. Even the crappy ones.
Yeah.
Because what was it, Michael's? It was the other one across the street. AC Moore. They were the last ones. They had them with one of the tenons. They had a hole in it, and it was hung on a pegboard or something. But they are very difficult to find.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, geez. Okay, so we're gonna have to end this, unfortunately. Not that she can't come back.
Yeah.
And I've got a couple of ideas for you that I don't want to put out because I don't want to shock you into it or whatever. And I don't know if it will actually work out. But folks, if you just joined us or joined us late. And we always pick up podcasts at the tail end sometimes. But today's guest has been Zarla Ludin, And she is running this really great new business called the Spare Studio. We will have all that information, as you know, on our companion post to this podcast. And thank you so very much for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
This is auspicious in so many ways, because my marketing brain now is going in full gear. And with that in mind, you know what I always say, be kind to yourself. Take care of yourself. God, I've been messing that up the last couple of podcasts. Take care of yourself. I'm not taking care of myself enough. And be kind to others. Bye-bye.
To learn more about the South Coast Artist Index, visit theartistindex.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Be the artist you believe you are, and let's take care of each other out there.